From provincial backwater to world-class empire, ancient Rome fascinates us to this day with its grand monuments that decorate the Mediterranean world. But how did one little city become synonymous with one of the greatest civilizations in history? Let's explore that today. I'm Luke, and this is polýMATHY. Sponsored by Skillshare. As a polymath, I have a wide range of interests and skill sets, from language learning to rocket science. But keeping myself organized in my work and personal goals has always been a challenge, so that's why I've been using this engaging series on real productivity by Thomas Frank to improve what I can accomplish in a day. It's one thing to know what habits you want to form. I'm sure you know exactly what you want to work on. I do too. But making those habits last and employing them to produce consistent results in the long term can be elusive. But thanks to Thomas Frank, I've already had success and have become more productive. I want to learn so many things, and thanks to Skillshare's online learning community and super easy-to-use interface, I've been inspired to master skills I never dreamed of, like animation and photography. Now, whether you're a polymath or you have a specific skill that you're passionate about to make 2022 a year of new learning, then Skillshare is definitely the place to start. The first 1,000 of my viewers to sign up using my code polýMATHY or my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. Rome sits on the Tiber River in the region of Latium, Lazio in modern Italian. Upon the founding of Rome during the 8th century BC, the Latins had a mostly agrarian society. At this time, Latium was dotted with small towns between pastures and farmland. I often wonder at the fact that one of the most famous and august civilizations in history started out as a band of simple farmer types in an otherwise unremarkable corner of the planet. Some of this can be seen in Latin's vocabulary. For example, the word for foreigner is peregrinus, coming from per, through, and ager, field. So peregrinus could roughly mean that guy who just came through my field. According to myth and legend, Rome was founded by Romulus, its first king, which is where it got its name from. However, this folk etymology from antiquity is almost certainly untrue, since the ulus ending in archaic Latin words tends to indicate something derived from something else. Thus, Romulus may have originally meant the one from Rome. It has been proposed instead that Roma may have an Indo-European origin, related to the ancient Greek word reuma, a river or a stream, and thus may have been an archaic name for the Tiber River. In ancient Greek, the name of the city for Rome is Rome, the same as the word for strength, which is just a coincidence. Most likely of all, though, is an Etruscan origin, from Ruma, an Etruscan tribe, and the etymology of this word is from rum, teat, which recalls to my mind the mythological raising of Romulus and Remus by the she-wolf. But who are the Etruscans? In the 8th century BC, the minute kingdom of Rome finds across its northern border the wealthy Etruscan civilization, the most powerful in Italy. Etruria was a collection of cities with a common language, which was not related to the Indo-European Italic languages like Latin, Oscan, and Umbrian, and with a common culture. And during their expansion in the 7th century BC, Rome came to be dominated by the Etruscans. Indeed, it has also been proposed that Rome may have been partially or entirely founded by Etruscans before the city fused with Latin and broader Italic culture. Rome only emerges out of legend and into history around 510 BC, when it overthrew its Etruscan rulers as an independent republic. In time, Rome became the Latin hegemon, from the ancient Greek word hegemon, meaning leader. The geopolitics of this first era of the Roman Republic see Rome as the most powerful city-state among allied or conquered city-states, what we call the Latin League, in the relatively flat and fertile territory of Latium, bounded by the Tiber River and the Etruscans to the north, the Apennines and Sabines to the east, the Samnites and Greek city-states to the south, and the Tyrrhenian Sea to the west. Roman technology had not yet developed the advanced road and shipbuilding techniques which would later permit Roman power projection across the Mediterranean. So for now, this bit of territory was their entire world. At the start of the 4th century BC, the Romans conquered the city of Veii, the richest and most powerful in Etruria, marking a distinct turning point in the balance of power in the peninsula. Just a few years later, around 390 BC, however, the Gaulish tribe, the Senones, which had already arrived from Greater Gaul and colonized part of Italy, sacked Rome. I believe this to be the beginning of Rome's notion of defensive conquest. If the city could be attacked by a distant enemy that had no direct borders with the Republic, how could it be safe unless it pacified all the far-off Gauls and many other potential pernicious peoples? The Romans often justified their expansion on the basis of protecting themselves through preemptive wars, and I think this geopolitical idea was initiated by this sack of Rome by the Gauls, a seed that would eventually propel Caesar's later conquest of Omnis Gallia. During the 4th century BC, Rome continued to engage in wars with its neighbors, subduing various Sabine and Etruscan towns, but its control over the heart of Italy becomes decisive during the Samnite Wars. During these conflicts, the Romans faced the Samnites to their southeast, who had allied with the Etruscans and the Umbrians. Rome was surrounded. The end of the First Samnite War left Rome in control of much of the central Tyrrhenian coast and plains up to the Apennines. The Second, or Great Samnite War, handed even more power to the Roman Republic, which took Adriatic coastal territories. The Third Samnite War saw Rome conquer not only the Samnites, and thus all of central Italy, but also their old enemies, the Gaulish Senones, by the beginning of the 3rd century BC. The Republic also took significant territory from Etruria. Now the geopolitical situation has Rome bounded just by the Etruscans and Gauls to the north and the Greek city-states in the south, which is called Magna Graecia in the restored classical pronunciation of Latin, or Magna Grecia in the ecclesiastical or traditional Italian pronunciation of Latin. Of the city-states of Greater Greece, the largest and most powerful was Tarentum, which came into conflict with Roman ships near their harbors in 282 BC. This triggers the Pyrrhic War, named eponymously after Pyrrhus, king of Epirus, who came to the aid of Tarentum. Evidently, Greeks in Sicily, under Carthaginian dominion, were also poised to seek help from Pyrrhus, leading Carthage to ally itself with Rome against Pyrrhus and Tarentum. Pyrrhus was initially successful against the Romans, but at great cost to the forces of Epirus, giving us the expression, a Pyrrhic victory, where a battle won, ironically, loses the war. By 270 BC, Rome had conquered Magna Graecia on the peninsula. The Etruscans had joined the Pyrrhic coalition, having hoped to prevent further Roman expansion, so once Rome had dominated the lands to the south, they turned north and defeated the Etruscans decisively. One way it seems the Romans accomplished this was through the technology of road building. The Etruscans called themselves Rasenna, or Rasna, whose etymology is unknown, but one possible origin of the name in Latin, Etrusci or Tusci, is probably the Greek name for this people, Tyrsenui, which in non-Attic dialects is Tyrsenui. Tyrsis or Tyrris in ancient Greek means a tower, and is the origin of the same word in Latin, turris. It's possible the Greeks called them the tower people because the Etruscans built their citadels on top of mountains, and many towns in Italy, like Orvieto, stand on their ruins. The wealth of the Etruscans came from their vast trading networks, especially by sea. They were famous traders. Artifacts have been discovered as far away as Carthage. But the Romans were able to build roads that encircled their cities, allowing the Republic to move their armies with great speed over land and besiege the Etruscans in their high towers. An important key to victorious strategy or tactics is having a decision-making loop that iterates faster than your opponent's. Thus the Romans outmaneuvered the Etruscans, limiting their enemies' options while broadly expanding their own. And with that, the Romans conquered their former masters, and the erstwhile greatest civilization of Italy had been completely subsumed by the Republic. Now in control of virtually the entire Italic peninsula, the only thing between Rome and the geographical boundary of the Alps are the Gauls. But just across the Strait of Messina is Sicily, which, along with Sardinia and Corsica, is controlled by the Carthaginian Empire. The Carthaginians spoke Punic, from the Latin name for Phoenician, a language related to Biblical Hebrew and other Semitic tongues. And this nation dominated much of the coast of the western Mediterranean. By my reading of history, the Carthaginians and the Romans were very different peoples. Carthage had a vast trading network in its sphere of influence, from Libya to Iberia. They were outstanding sailors, which fits their Phoenician ancestors. And their navy, manned almost entirely by Carthaginian citizens, was more powerful than their army. Their land forces, however, while capable, were made up almost entirely of foreign mercenary troops. Thus, the army was only raised for particular campaigns and then demobilized, while the navy was a permanent fighting force. At the start of the Punic Wars, by contrast, Rome's armed forces hardly had a navy to speak of, and they barely had the technical knowledge to build one. Their core competency was instead land warfare. The Roman mentality was quite the opposite of the Carthaginians. Soldiers had to be citizens, which ensured great loyalty to the cause of the Republic. I would also characterize the Romans as being somewhat different from nearby civilizations by the degree to which they deified the city and placed the good of the state over their own well-being and that of their families. This is a generalization, of course, but it may explain why Rome would continue to expand and conquer so successfully during this period and long after, despite taking tremendous losses. Which brings us to the Punic Wars. The clash of these two powers was inevitable. Now identifying with the coast of the Italic Peninsula, the Roman Republic finds itself surrounded on two sides by the Carthaginians, who project power from Corsica, Sardinia, and Sicily. And thus, the Carthaginians had the ability to block Rome from access to the Mediterranean, whether for trading or military purposes. By the end of the First Punic War, although their casualties were great, the Romans managed to take most of Sicily from the Carthaginians. Sardinia and Corsica were annexed shortly thereafter. Suddenly, the geopolitical situation has changed quite a bit. By this time, Rome at last has the technology to project power over land and sea, and its sphere of influence, now based in the three major Italian islands, pushes deep into the Mediterranean, allowing it to open a new strategic front on the other side of the Adriatic Sea. But the First Punic War did not resolve the conflict between Carthage and Rome. Beginning in 218 BC, the Second Punic War is probably the most famous, since it features Hannibal's invasion of Italy across the Alps. I believe this attack from the north, via Gaul, further imprinted on the Roman mind the need to control territory well beyond its homeland, as enemies from very far away could use it to strike at the heart of the peninsula. Hannibal was incredibly successful in Italy, where his forces defeated the Romans again and again for 15 years, even causing various conquered peoples in Italy to defect against the Romans. As the war grows in scope, Carthaginian allies and mercenaries come from North Africa, Iberia, and Gaul. Now we have a picture that resembles something of a world war, a great war of the Mediterranean world, with battles raging in the Iberian theater in the west, and once Macedonia allied itself with Carthage, and the Aetolian League with Rome, Greece became a theater of war in the east. Despite incredible success for a decade and a half, having devastated 400 Italian cities without reinforcements or funding from Carthage during the entire campaign, Hannibal never managed to attack the city of Rome directly, and finally was recalled to defend Carthage once Publius Cornelius Scipio landed Roman forces in the Carthaginian homeland. Ultimately, the decisive Battle of Zama in 203 BC saw Scipio triumph over Hannibal. Carthage was defeated, and under the terms of the treaty, it was forced to hand over all its overseas possessions to the Romans, along with territory in North Africa. At the end of the Second Punic War, the geopolitical situation of Rome was more secure than it had ever been. The Republic commanded significant overseas territories, and all its former rivals had been subdued or conquered. The first half of the 2nd century BC sees conflicts between various parties in Greece. Rome involves itself in these wars, as does the Seleucid Empire in the east. Hannibal did not perish at the end of the Second Punic War, but at this time was serving in exile as an advisor to the Seleucid king. It is recorded that Scipio was sent to Ephesus as an envoy to the Seleucids, and actually met Hannibal for the second time many years after Zama, during which the two chatted about their ranking of the greatest generals in history. Having been asked by Scipio, Hannibal responded that his list put Alexander the Great at number 1, Pyrrhus of Epirus at number 2, and for number 3, he named himself, and not Scipio. Well, Scipio was a little annoyed by this, but he laughed and said, "Well, where would you place yourself, Hannibal, if you had not been defeated by me?" To which Hannibal replied, "Well, in that case, I should have put myself before Alexander." The two chuckled together, and Hannibal complimented Scipio on having defeated the only general greater than Alexander. The wars among their Greek allies eventually pulled the Romans and the Seleucids into direct conflict with each other, where Hannibal again was commanding the decisive battle against Rome. But the Seleucids were defeated, leaving much of Greece in the Roman sphere of influence. In the meantime, the geopolitical situation has come to favor Rome even more. Italy and its main 3 islands are safe. The Republic has expanded into Cisalpine Gaul, slowly but surely subduing the tribes south of the Alps. Meanwhile, the Romans fend off more Gauls during the Celtiberian War in the west. Various wars in Illyria and Greece allow Rome to turn the Adriatic Sea into a Roman lake. In 149 BC, the Third Punic War is provoked by a conflict between Carthage and Numidia. Fearing a possible resurgent Carthage, Rome uses this war as an excuse for eliminating their old foe once and for all. It ends with Rome razing Carthage to the ground. Shortly thereafter, in 146 BC, Rome takes full control of mainland Greece at the Battle of Corinth. Starting in 113 BC, the Republic encounters a species of conflict that will threaten its integrity for the rest of its history: migration of bellicose tribes. During the Pyrrhic War, a group of migrating Germanic tribes from northern Europe make their way through Gaul and finally attack the Romans at Norea. These tribes never posed an existential threat to Rome or its heartland, but they did set the stage for internal strife in the capital, and also further interest in the Roman idea of expansion all the way into northern Europe, to subjugate threats for the sake of its own defense. By the end of the 2nd century BC, Rome's sphere of influence includes most of the Mediterranean, but divisions at home and potential enemies in the north and to the east mean that Rome's transition from republic to empire will not be an easy one. In the next installment of this series, we will explore the forces that propel Rome to dominate the entire Mediterranean and beyond. So subscribe and hit that little bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video is released. Thanks so much for watching. Walete.